the reruns.
It's a reruns,
Yes, the
yeah.
reruns.
Seinfeld did about right.
Sure.
All right,
I get
let's
them
get
for
started.
years. But we haven't been on TV that long.
Feedback again.
Good evening. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 7 o'clock on Tuesday, July 13th. It's time to call this meeting to order of the Chelmsford Conservation Commission. My name is Carl Bischoff. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and on YouTube. I thought I would like to just take a moment to talk about the Conservation Commission and our charter and what's on our Conservation web homepage. So I'm just going to kind of read what's there. We may want to update this one of these days someday, but just a real quick, take a moment. So the Chelmsford Conservation Commission promotes the protection and management of the town's diverse natural resources. The commission is the permitting authority specifically charged with the conservation and protection of wetland resource areas. The commission also provides educational resources for residents to be actively involved in the use and enjoyment of Chelmsford open spaces. The commission manages more than 900 acres, I think it's over 1,000 now, right, Dave? Yeah, of town-owned open space, including 9 reservations, actually I think 10 now, with public trail systems. The commission administers the Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, and engages in planning, acquisition, and management of open space and conservation reservations, encouraging and monitoring conservation restrictions, and coordinating with other town officials and boards on conservation issues. Current membership for the Conservation Commission is found on the appointed officials page, and we're all here tonight. So I promise I won't do this at every meeting, but I just thought the beginning of the new fiscal year, good to review what our charter and what our webpage is. So now let's just start with the agenda. I think before we start with the public open session, I know just to talk through the agenda briefly, I believe the first thing under regulatory hearings, if I'm not mistaken, David, we're taking that one off the list.
Yes.
That would be the request for determination of 260 Old Westford Street by the town, so that's gone.
Are they not ready, or they're not gonna do it?
No, it turned out they had already filed.
Yeah, it was
Earlier.
more bureaucratic mistake, I guess, or something like that. The second one is the 270 Billerica Road. We will get to that, but we're going to slide that a little bit in the agenda because there is a peer reviewer that we want to be able to have part of that discussion. So we'll slide that a little bit later. And I don't think there's anything else that's changing. Is that right, David?
That's right.
That's it,
Yep.
okay. So before we get into, well, let's talk about what's on the list here on the open session citizen concerns. So the first item is about the possible acquisition of parcel 124-462-19 to add to the Cranberry Bog Reservation. So how should we proceed with this discussion? I know that I believe the homeowner or the property owner is here. Would you like to come and talk about it, or is that,
Who's making the request? Town manager, or the applicant, or the
I think the
homeowner?
the homeowner, the property owner, yeah. So why don't you come up and just give a brief overview of the property and what the opportunity is?
Okay, my name is Pat Wojcik. My address is 24 Elm Street, and my sister and I own this property. You're probably familiar with the parcel. It used to be like a 5 1/4 acre parcel that was under 61A. In the past 3 to 4 years, we've subdivided it and sold off the buildable lots. This is what's remaining of it. It's about a little over 1 acre, 1.15 acres. It does abut the Cranberry Bog Reservation that's been run by the Conservation forever. So we still get a tax bill every quarter for it, and it doesn't seem to have any use for us or any of the other abutters. We thought that the Conservation Commission might have a use for it, and I guess especially it came to mind based on what was done at Fall Town Meeting with the property off Wilson Lane.
Right.
In North Chelmsford. There's just so many similarities. It's it's about the same size. It abuts conservation land. The assessed value of it is $33,000, so it's about the same as that. So we thought, to get a few dollars for it, we would bring it to you and see if the Conservation Commission had a desire and a need for it.
Is there any access to it from the road right now? I know I believe if I saw it, there's like a paper road to
Yes,
it.
and that is not constructed yet, but it should be, I would say, this year or no later than by the spring.
What was the parcel we just had the hearing on next to this?
That was my neighbor.
Right, yeah, they're putting in a new septic system. Where is it? Oh, you got the map up there, Dave.
Yeah.
Where is it relative to what Pat's talking about?
This is the parcel the commission just issued a permit for, and this is Pat's parcel right here.
And the reservation is just to the right of that.
Yes.
Yep.
And does that parcel abut the reservation property?
The one that's up, that's being offered,
Yeah,
about
that's- Yeah.
conservation, yes.
Like that whole long property line
Yeah,
is all
Right there.
adjacent, yeah.
That's all
Good.
conservation.
Got it, thanks, David. Both Davids.
So, any questions comments? Dave, you want to start?
we're not negotiating.
No.
We're just saying whether we're interested in the property.
Yeah.
Pat, can you in fact sell a piece of property to the town as a select person? Is there
I
any?
believe if it's an arm's length transaction, I mean,
Okay.
I know town manager's here, he could
Okay.
possibly confirm that, but, I'm not looking for any special.
No, I just want,
consideration.
because it's unusual, I think.
Yes.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a,
We'll come around.
Where is, I have where is this, yeah. You know, there's an island in the cranberry bog off of Pat's property that the kids use. Where is the island relative to this piece of property? Does anybody know?
isn't it over in the main body?
Well, it's probably not an island
It's
all
that,
year.
it's that right
I
there.
don't know.
That's
Is that it there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this parcel's not close to that, so this parcel would not help us to prevent trashing that island, which happens quite frequently.
Yeah, I don't know where the people come from that
Oh,
go there.
they come from the neighborhood, Pat. They
Well,
should. And then,
yeah.
all we hope for is they grow up and go to college.
Right.
So,
Chris, do you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think this would be a good thing. It's, comparable to like what we did over at Wilson. I mean, it's strategically, it's positioned where it's a budding cranberry bog, which is one of our best assets, and we just kind of, abuts it. I think there's advantages as far as the wildlife habitat. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing, and again, it's location, and I just think it's a good location. So I'd be in favor of it.
Mark?
There was conversation a while back that the water department was in that area, and I noticed Andy's here tonight. Is there any interest in that parcel down there?
Not anymore.
Okay,
That's why we went other ways developing it.
very good. Okay, I'm good.
well, to that point, Mark, if owning this property might give us more protection if sometime in the future there was an interest from Chelmsford Water Department to go for water out there again.
Then they should buy it.
Well, but if we control it, we'll have more say over it. If they own it, they have more say over it, that's all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, that's accurate.
yeah, I guess it's accurate.
Anything else, Mark?
No, I'm good.
Bill?
I think it's a good idea.
Peter?
Good idea, and the reason I say that is the state climate planners are really pushing this kind of idea, and encouraging towns to take a look at existing conservation land and where you could add parcels that would increase all the habitat and water quality and other benefits, carbon and all that. So it fits perfectly, kind of the direction that the state planners are encouraging towns to go, so. I'm definitely in favor.
Okay. John?
I'm definitely in favor. I think it's great.
So, yeah, Dave? Yeah?
We have to be a little careful about buying bits and pieces and find out we don't have any money left to buy a big parcel, if and when it ever appeared. I'm not saying there is one, but I mean, look at, now granted, Warren Pole was $1.1 million, and that had to be financed totally separately. But we spent, what, 30-odd grand for the one in North? This might be somewhere around there.
Yeah.
and there may be some others, and all of a sudden, our CPC money's been used, and our coffers are a little dry, so we just have to be, who's the member of CPC from us now?
I am.
Oh, you can put somebody else on it now. Not me, I did my tour, it's all the rookies that
I'm
go
fine.
on it.
I'm fine with doing
All the
it.
rookies, but we need to be a little careful how many bits and pieces, I mean, this
Yep.
piece is pretty good.
It's a good piece.
But
yeah.
generally, we have to be aware of that, that's all.
Yeah, and if I could add, David, one thing I've been learning through the Conservation Commissioner training and whatnot is there's a fair amount of state and federal money, we have to figure out how to get it, to support land acquisition. And I think what this commission has been doing, what the town has been doing, fits the model that the selection criteria talk about for these kinds of grants, that is adding to existing lands. And we're not there yet, of course, but that might, down the road, fill in the gap, potential gap David's referring to.
So I think, yeah, go
One
ahead.
more comment on what you were talking about, Dave, is a parcel like that is not developable. So there's no hurry to get that parcel.
Right.
It's not going anywhere. So,
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna say, is I think there are properties in town like this. We just bought the Wilson Lane one, as she said. And there's other ones that are possibly on the radar.
Oh.
So I think maybe, from our point of view, what I'm thinking is that we just say that we're in favor of purchasing it. We're not necessarily
I would
saying
rather say we're in favor of acquiring it,
acquiring it.
that's different.
Yeah.
Semantics.
Sure. Do we want to take a vote on this?
Because we don't set the
Yeah.
price.
Right, right.
It's the town manager and the seller that set the
Yeah,
price.
I'll
but
make a
we can
motion.
just show that we're positively supporting it, or not, if you want to vote against it, but,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
make
So
a motion
I'd
and
take a
for-
motion.
that we positively support the town's potential acquisition of this parcel of land, parcel 124-462-19, which is adjacent to the Cranberry Bog Reservation.
Do I have a second? Second with Mark, motion from Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. So we support it, and
you.
we can, you can be, I'm sure, talking to the town about this, about the next steps.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Next on the list, we have Anthony Rossi, 64 Gorham Street, buffer zone work at 64 Gorham Street. So,
I don't see Mr. Rossi here. I can give the commission some background on this. Just had this up earlier, for some reason it went away.
so this looks like it's right in the neighborhood of our other,
Yeah, just
you can
down
keep the
road.
map right in the same place.
Just,
GIS says it's wetlands from his house to the river.
So, not quite. So what he's doing, or what he's actually started doing it, and I wish you were here tonight so he could, make sure I'm correct. Looks like he wants to do some landscaping in back in this area. Let me just bring up the aerial on this. So that's down here. As you can see, it's existing lawn. So he I guess wants to do some filling in down in a low point here. Basically do some landscaping. I think he then wants to, ultimately have it be lawn. I did measure when I was out with him. We did measure 50 feet from the wetlands, and I told him that he wouldn't be allowed to go any further than that, any closer than 50 feet. I think the issue in my mind is whether this comes under a minor exemption. to be able to convert existing lawn, although I'm not sure it is actually a conversion. I think it's probably just landscaping, just some additional landscaping, leaving it as lawn, as long as it doesn't go any closer than 50 feet to the wetlands. Again, I think it would be better to have him here.
Yeah.
I thought that was all arranged, but I'll remind him to come back to the next meeting. He's actually already started to do the work, and the reason it was brought to my attention was it was in the form of a complaint. So rather than, him proceeding on my authorization, I thought it was better that he come and see the commission, just in case whoever it is that complained.
I don't,
over my
Mr.
head.
Chair, I don't think we need to waste time. I think this should be under an order, an NOI.
It sounds like.
Historically,
Yeah.
those properties along the Concord River off of Gorham Street have been a problem. One, not all of them, but a lot of them. And that's partly because Concord River can flood, and it comes up, in many cases, it comes up close to the property. Maybe not in this case, because we don't have enough data, but
I think the applicant should be present.
Yeah.
Where is
he's not
this,
gonna tell us anything.
We can
anyhow.
ask questions.
David,
No,
where's
all we
the,
need to say is this, can we let them go ahead, or do we want to file a notice of intent?
is it FEMA floodplain?
Let me bring that up.
I'm sure it is.
Isn't that the big issue? Flood capacity?
Well, I
Storage?
think it looks like it's in the 500-year. The blue is actually the 100-year floodplain. I think he's not going into that. This is the 500-year floodplain, which of course is not regulated. So I think he probably is slightly into that.
And what the meteorologists were saying is they think that the 100-year storms are now really 20-year storms. I don't know about the 500.
So let's keep things moving. This is not gonna get resolved here. We need to have him here, and if that's okay with everybody. And I think you could probably convey the tone.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be here, so.
Yep,
my
understood.
apologies.
Okay.
We've had people that want to put marinas in their backyard off the Concord River in the past.
Okay, so let's keep moving. David, are we ready to jump ahead to, 270's not ready still, right?
No, Phil Paradis is here.
Yeah, okay, so we can go to that? Okay, so let's go to the next order in the regulatory hearings is, let's see, so this is request for amended order of conditions, 1290931 DH Property Holdings LLC, 270 Billrica Road, with Casey Ferrera and Howard Stein Hudson representing the applicant. And is there a notice on this, or is this is new, isn't it?
So there is a notice.
Mr. Vice Chair, do you
Is there a
have?
notice that I could read into the record, please?
Sure, I don't have a printout, but let me bring that up, hold on. Let me zoom in. Can you read that, Chris?
Sure, I can read it, he can read it.
Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing in Room 204, the Chelmsford Town Offices, on Tuesday, July 11, 2023, at 7:05 p.m. to consider the request for an amendment to the Order of Conditions 129-0931 filed by the original applicant, DH Property Holdings LLC, on behalf of property owner BLDG Mass/Lex LLC. The proposed changes to the project entail lowering of the finished floor elevation of the building, et cetera, as well as a reduction in retaining walls adjacent to the wetlands. Therefore, I think we're good, sufficient on the notice.
So Casey, could you just clarify the ownership issues? Actually, the ownership information in here is incorrect.
Right, so recently the applicant did close on the property. So the property owner is now 270 Barica Owner LLC with the same address as the previous applicant, but the building Mass Lex is no longer involved because they have sold the property.
Can you
Who's
just
no longer
repeat your name,
involved?
please, for the record?
Sorry, Casey Farrar, Howardson Hudson.
Who's no longer involved?
The previous property owners,
Who are they by name?
building Mass Lex, it's their LLC.
And who are the principals? Do you know?
I don't know.
So, and who are the new principals?
Of the new ownership,
Yeah.
the new ownership is basically a sub-company of DH Property Holdings, who was the
Who are
pre-applicant.
those principals?
The principal of that is Michael Bennett, who is the applicant that we work
Okay,
under.
thank you.
So you can start your presentation.
Yeah, why don't we have a overview of what the request is and what's,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane from Finner and Nicholson. I, too, represent DH Holdings, Property Holdings. Have been working with Casey on this project. As you know, we were here earlier in this year, and you actually issued an order of conditions for the development of this warehouse distribution facility. And we also received all of our permits from the planning board, so you would think we were great. Some of the tenants looking at the building actually asked for a reduction in the size of the building, lowering of the ceiling, lowering of elevation, some changes to the aesthetics of the building, architectural. So there were actually things that were very welcomed by the planning board because we reduced and made it lower and whatnot. But in doing that, we disrupted this, wonderful drainage system that had been previously approved, and, we had an order of conditions. However, tenants get to dictate a lot of what happens in the world, and so we did come in and have met with the planning board for the change. They were somewhat happy with the changes because it made the building lower and more hidden from the street. But we did have to file with you for an amended order of conditions because the drainage system changed. We did have that drainage system reviewed by Beta, your peer reviewers who did the first go-about. And in fact, they actually peer reviewed for the planning board this second round as well. And we've actually finished with planning. They accepted Beta's final letter that everything was good, so we're done with planning. But now we're here to present the project to you guys. And I will let Casey give you the technical overview.
okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Again, Casey Farrar, Howardson Hudson. So the site changes associated with this amendment are not too detailed. We lowered the site generally, so across the entire site, not just within your jurisdiction, but also on the other side of the building, by about 2.5 to 3 feet, associated with the building going down by 2.5 feet. In doing so, in lowering the site, most of the changes end up on this left side within your jurisdiction because we had previously proposed an infiltration system beneath the pavement. In lowering the pavement, we no longer had separation between the top of pavement and the groundwater to fit a subsurface infiltration system. But the only reason the subsurface infiltration was previously proposed was to meet phosphorus requirements through the town of Chelmsford. In place of the infiltration system, we have proposed a focal point, which was there before, but is now standing alone, and that does treat fully for the 60% required by the town for phosphorus. And it also treats 80% for TSS, so it meets both requirements for TSS and phosphorus on this side of the building.
Can you just point out the focal point?
Sure. So the focal point, the subsurface previously took up kind of this area, which was under this island, also under the pavement. Now the focal point stands alone in this location in this island. Drainage will go to the island, run through the focal point, and then be released to the banks that go down towards the wetland. In reviewing with Beta, they did note that the focal point dips into the estimated seasonal high groundwater. And as part of our correspondence, we have wrapped the focal point with an impermeable fabric, which I believe was a 30 mil PVC. And that's standard for any kind of detention facility that would dip into groundwater. But beyond that, this focal point fully treats and fully for both TSS and phosphorus for this entire side of the project, which is really the change to the mass stormwater standards that we looked at making.
Are there any other changes that should be covered?
And I guess also, as Doug just pointed out, with lowering the site, there was significant retaining walls along this whole section and went up to the back. With lowering the site, the need for retaining wall got less, so now the only retaining wall we have is about a foot, and it just runs along a portion of where it was before.
A foot in height.
A foot in height.
For about how long?
I believe it's about 70 feet in length.
And what was it before, Casey, as far as the height?
The height was between 3 and 4 feet to keep it as a landscaping wall rather than an actual retaining wall. But that ran, I don't know the exact number, but it was the majority of the whole side of the site.
Anything else to add?
I believe that covers the extent of changes within the buffer zone.
David Kuntz, Mr. Kuntz, do you have anything you want to share?
Just,
from your-
sure. So Casey, could you please go into a little bit more detail of how the focal point actually operates? I think you said it actually is down below seasonal high groundwater?
Correct. So the focal point, can I actually just work on there?
Sure.
So-
You want me to zoom in a little bit more?
Sure. So what happens is all the stormwater from this, the driveway at some point dips back towards the back wetlands. So what's in front of that point on the driveway and what comes in from the entrance all flows towards 3 different curb breaks that are within this island. Okay, all 3 of these curb breaks are fitted with a rain guardian treatment system, which is basically a catch basin that has a filter in it, so that it captures and gives you pre-treatment. That's actually rated for 80% TSS on its own. Now, after it filters through the rain guardian, the focal point is just a system of media. It's engineered media, and as the water runs through the media, it's cleaned for phosphorus and TSS as well. That media is rated for 100 inches an hour, so it's able to accept any storm that we're going to get in this area without that being the cause of any backup.
What kind of maintenance is needed on that?
What kind of maintenance? There's very minimal, actually. So every year, they're just gonna have to go in. It has a lot of plants in it, so they have to make sure the plants stay healthy and the plants are not dying and creating kind of organic debris over it. And then any other trash that may make it in, they just have to clean it out, and that's the extent of the maintenance.
But
for
the
it.
media stays constant, it's not,
Correct, the media stays constant, they haven't had any issues with replacements. Below the engineered media, they have, the previous infiltration system was an R tank system, so what's below the focal point is just smaller tanks of those R tanks, so that once that water makes it through the media, it has an ability to stage before it can exit through a pipe that's fitted at the bottom of that. So basically, it has a free-flowing ability to get out once it goes through the media. And we have a pipe that connects right here and brings it right out to the wetland. In the event that anything is wrong with the focal point system and water is not going through it, for maybe it's a maintenance issue or maybe there's something clogging it, there is a beehive outlet fitted just outside of the focal point, and that will accept any water which tees into that pipe that goes out. So it's basically an emergency backup so that they can have time to repair.
Is that visible that that's happening?
It would be, it's only fitted 6 inches above the media, so it would be 6 inches of water that goes into the beehive.
Right, but can you tell, can the operators tell when that's
Oh.
bypassing?
Yeah.
If
Can they
there's-
see it?
If there's,
Yeah, exactly.
if there's stormwater ponding, they'll know that they need to do something with it.
And is, what sort of, and apologies if it's there, is there something in the O&M plan that describes how the owner will monitor this?
So in our O&M plan, we actually attached the Ferguson ACF full maintenance plan, because I didn't want to rewrite it for myself. I figured I'll take it right from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And so as part of our O&M, we have the manufacturer's maintenance guide.
Yeah. And what happens, over time, the thing will clog probably. So you're really pre-filtering this water
Correct, so
before it goes in, right?
The point of the rain guardians, the focal point doesn't actually need the rain guardians to be able to function. The rain guardians just help for long-term maintenance. If we didn't have
Yeah.
the rain guardians, that trash, that debris would all make its way into the rain guardian. So the point of the into the focal point, the point of the rain guardians is to prevent sorry, 90%, 99% of all that stuff from even getting to the focal point in the first place.
So how, excuse me, I don't know the technology.
Sure.
Does it remove phosphorus forever?
As far as I am aware, yes.
Like, doesn't the filter media, I'm trying to picture how that actually works. Is the phosphorus attached to particles?
That I cannot answer for you, but I can, if you'd like, I can get Ferguson to write us a thing as part of an order or as part of a condition to let you know how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want my ignorance of how it works to gum up the works, but I'm just curious because usually when you talk about like removal of phosphorus of some sort or anything with some sort of media,
Right.
the media has a finite capacity to absorb.
Mm-hmm.
Either it gets clogged or if it's something like carbon filtering.
It's gotta be
of course, gets
replaced.
filled. Yeah, or gets replaced. There's some maintenance program, but
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're saying is the manufacturer has covered that and you've submitted that to us.
We have submitted, and as with our application outside of the O&M plan, we've also submitted the findings of their TSS removal and phosphorus tests.
Yeah.
So they're
Got
also
it.
part of the
So
application.
Peter, why don't you continue if you have other questions? Unless, David, you had something else? or-
I just had a couple of other.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Phil, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Hi, Phil.
actually-
Did you have any particular comments on the focal point? Any particular issues of concern?
And
that-
can you state your name and
Yeah, no, I think it's an appropriate design for this application. We did have him add the pretreatment, the rain guardian turrets to the project to make sure that there was adequate pretreatment and that the media would function as efficiently as possible.
So can I ask you to state your name and your relationship to this project?
Yeah, my name is Phil Paradis from Beta Group. The town has asked me to do a peer review of this project in terms of stormwater management.
Thank you.
And
Okay, my next
I'm a
question.
professional engineer with, whatever.
Thank you, Phil. So my next question was,
Yep.
Casey, so what is the seasonal high groundwater elevation?
So the seasonal high groundwater, if you can zoom out just a tad bit.
Sure.
So back in May of 2022, I dug 4 test pits in this location, and we found seasonal high varying between 114.5 to 115, 115 being up in this TP4 area. In previous iterations of this project, we have not included the area of TP4 in our subsurface infiltration. We used TPs 1, 2, and 3 because they were lower in the mid 114s.
So it's about 114?
114, and if you just zoom out just a little bit more and go up to this corner, I included the testing information as part of this. So you have 114.44 in this TP1 location, 114.63 in this TP2 location, and 114.36 in this TP3 location.
And so the bottom of the building foundation is proposed to be at what elevation?
So the building is proposed to be a slab foundation at elevation 122.5. So the only concrete that will extend down to be frost walls. That'll be about 4 feet, so down to about 118.5.
Okay. So for members of the commission who know more about construction than I do, when the excavation is being done for the frost walls, does it have to go any lower than that? I mean, is there any chance, I guess it would have to go, another 3 or 4 feet
About
to
4
actually
feet, yeah.
hit groundwater? Is there any chance that might happen?
Well, there should be some dewatering in place. It probably might happen.
Okay, because I think that's what we don't want to happen, because this is over the zone 2 aquifer. I mean, we don't want there to be any sort of interface with the groundwater.
I don't know how you want to approach this, Carl. That's one of my questions. This is downgrading of 4 Massachusetts MCP waste sites, and I did not do a deep dive, but there are contamination found in the wells that are on this property. So one of my questions was, how does the design handle dewatering? And I'm not sure I've thought this through clearly, but how does the groundwater infiltration system, how does this contamination impact the whole stormwater system itself? And is there any chance of releases more directly? Now, I'm saying that with the full understanding that most likely the groundwater contamination probably already discharges somewhere, to a stream or something. I mean, there already is an issue there. So I'm not quite sure how far this commission wants to go in worrying about that, but obviously if there's a potential for pumping contaminated groundwater during construction, you need to think about how to manage that.
I'm wondering if our beta, if you have any comment on that.
Yeah, I was, I'm not aware of any contamination on the site. We typically check it, but I was just checking it online right now to verify that. The design is meant to treat surface water runoff that is collected from pavement surfaces, and it will be pre-treated with the Rain Guardian and then run through similar to a sand filter device to capture the phosphorus removal, and then discharge the wetland. So this will be much cleaner. It won't be affected by groundwater. Now, I understand, I think if the commission has issue with dewatering efforts, then you may want to have LSP on site. But let me, as you're discussing this, let me check on the site right now to see what I can see.
Yeah, and Phil, thank you for that. I did not do a deep enough dive to figure out if the levels of contamination in that groundwater exceed the state standards for direct discharge to the wetland. I mean, if they meet drinking water standards, then, nobody's too worried about it. Again, I'm not an LSP, but, so I mean, that's just one question I wanted to throw out there in the event that it impacted our decision-making.
I was going to say, Casey, do you have anything you want to add to that?
So similar to Phil, I'm not aware of any contamination that rises to the level of requiring an LSP on site. As Phil stated, all of our treatment facilities and infiltration facilities are, again, for surface runoff. We don't intercept, or we don't propose to intercept any groundwater. I'd also like to note that as you move from left to right on the site, the groundwater drops. Where I did testing on the right side of the site, the groundwater was down in the 110, 111 area. So as you move forward, or as you move across the site to where the building is, it's very possible that the groundwater is even lower than the 114.
Right.
There's just a building there right now, so I can't test it.
Yeah, but question, so if I understand the focal system,
Yeah.
it's basically a basin in the water table that is separated from the water table with a 30 mil plastic barrier, right?
So the focal point dips into the estimated water table, I believe, by about an inch or two. It's the majority of the system is well above the water table. It's
Yeah.
just that it's, I believe, 2.5 feet in profile. And the very bottom of that R-tank storage system that shoots the water out to the pipe, it dips just below the water table.
Right, so, again, I'm just trying to think this through, and I'm not saying this is an issue, but if that 30 mil barrier was punctured during installation, then contaminated groundwater would enter the focal point and would end up being a direct discharge to the wetland, albeit it's probably, my guess is it's almost directly discharging anyway through groundwater. I mean, a hydrologist would have to answer that question. So again, I'm not raising that as a showstopper, but just something to think about.
So I guess to that effect, and kind of the end of what you just said, our system, or our point where we discharge at the very end, is just above where we found the wetland over here.
Yeah.
It's set back, but it's just above in elevation. So kind of what you just said is any groundwater that would enter this is likely already making its way into that wetland because it's not too
Right.
much lower.
Can I keep going?
Yeah, a couple more.
Peter,
I'm trying-
before you do, are we talking about two situations for groundwater? One is a problem that might occur doing construction,
Correct,
and the other is a problem that might occur
correct,
while the system is, while the building is operational.
correct, and,
Let's make it clear which, of the as we talk about it.
Yes.
Let's make it clear which
It's a good
one we're
point,
talking
yeah.
about.
yes, all right, let me try to be quicker here. So is this, I recall that there was something like, I might have this wrong, 15 loading docks?
It's
Is that changed? Is that the
It,
number?
it was up to 15. I believe it's 12 loading docks
12.
with one drive-in. It may be down to 11, but I think it's 12.
And what's the frequency of truck traffic? I mean, is this, if it's a warehouse, they're in and out
So that's
often,
going to
right?
depend on the tenant that has not been secured yet.
Yeah.
We did do a traffic study for the planning. I believe that was 30 trucks a day, maybe something in that
I don't
area.
recall the exact number, but excuse me, Douglas DeShane, representing the applicant, we did provide a worst-case scenario
Right,
on
and,
the traffic, and that was found to be acceptable.
yeah, so my real,
So those traffic studies that were done originally
Yep,
are still appropriate today?
Well,
The
we
business condi-
resubmitted and
excuse me.
updated.
we
Business,
updated.
excuse me, the business conditions that, as a result of the tenants wanting changes, have not changed. It's the same set of business conditions today as it was when we approved it.
So what we provided, and are you talking in relation to traffic?
Well, no, well, that's part of it. It gets to Peter's. I mean, if the original study said you're gonna have 85 trucks a day, the new business conditions might say it's gonna be 40, or might gonna be 120. I'm asking, have the business changed the original set of conditions?
Right, so without a tenant secured, there is no lowered business
So it's
conditions.
gonna be 1,000.
No, we still have the maximum that we have proposed, which was in the traffic study.
Okay, and so
That would-
that's still appropriate for this
Correct,
amendment?
that's still the worst-case scenario.
Okay.
Correct.
okay, so the question really is, you're sitting on top of a Zone 2 wellhead protection zone. Our Chelmsford Water District lead is here, knows a lot more about it than I, but the way I'm looking at it is, so what happens if a 55-gallon drum of Flora-Wax, which is known to be full of our favorite chemical PFAS, although hopefully not for much longer in the future, what if that falls off a truck and ends up in the drain at the loading dock, travels through the stormwater system, and it ends up being discharged to a Zone 2 wellhead protection zone? You guys must have thought about that. How would you?
So there's a
Think.
couple fail-safes that are part of this project. So in each catch basin is fitted with a hood. The hood will basically make sure that any floating liquid will not go below the hood and into the outlet, right? So if it has a density that's lower than water, it'll float and it won't go past the hood. If there was something that would spill into the catch basin that could go through the hood, we have fitted all the pipes on the other side. They all congregate to two main pipes that go towards those infiltration systems. They've been fitted with gates for shutoffs, so that those shutoffs will be able to stop any flow from accessing the infiltration system.
Thank you.
Okay, let's,
Yeah, I have some other questions related to that, but we can come back.
yeah,
I hope.
let's go around a little bit.
Thank
and
you.
Come back. John, do you have anything?
This, the fill,
The fill.
what, they're cutting the fill that's there now?
So the previous plan included approximately 16,000 yards of fill to be brought in.
To be brought in?
To be brought in from the site, not just moved on site, but brought into the site. This new plan cuts it down to about 4,000 yards of fill, excluding foundation excavation, so it really could be close to a wash.
It's a pretty level site, as
You-
far as
if you-
looking at this.
If you look at it, it's really not. If you look at it right to left, it dips from the right side
Oh,
of the
yeah,
existing
it
site to the
dips,
left.
But
Right, and as part of what we're doing, we kind of have to take that low spot and bring it up so that it's more level, so that's where a lot of that fill comes in.
okay. The filling's gonna be done on the left side.
It's around the site, but majorly, yes, on the left side.
All right,
Anything else, John?
no,
Bill?
So the reason you changed to this system was because you're lowering the building, lowering the site?
Correct. So as part of lowering the building, obviously the site needs to be lowered to accommodate the lower building. So the rest of the site was lowered with the building, and that required the change of the infiltration system and the revised drainage system.
So the system within that island, to get it out, is there a way to get it out of the water table by expanding the size of that, changing the design?
No, so that 2.5-foot depth is just that's the depth required to get that treatment. So it has to run through 2.5 feet of that media to be able to get that treatment. It's not if you open it up and make it wider, because then every raindrop is going to be going through less media. So it has to be that 2.5-foot depth to be able to get that 80% TSS and 60% phosphorus.
If you raise the elevation up a little bit,
So we're running right now at bare minimum pitch from the building to the focal point. So if I were to raise the rain guardians that fill into that focal point at all, I'd have to raise the building up again.
and you're lowering the building, it's a financial thing with the
The
fill.
lowering of the building was calculated based on what we would need to get the site from 16,000 cubic feet, or 16,000 cubic yards of fill back down to about 0.
Right,
So
so are we, is it trade-off for the lowering the building and what we're gonna get for a infiltration system? Is it worth it to us?
Well, all the infiltration did was it provided that 60% phosphorus. We're providing that 60% phosphorus through the focal point anyway. All of our recharge requirements and everything are met with the other infiltration basins that are proposed on site. The only function of that infiltration system was to get the 60% phosphorus, and we're providing that with the focal point anyway.
All right, that's for now, Carl.
Mark?
I'm going to ask for some questions that we probably already answered. With the elevations that were existing before, you're bringing the building down 3 feet. Is that my understanding?
2.5 feet about, yep.
2.5 feet. And your coverage over the RCP wouldn't be adequate,
The RCP.
reinforced concrete pipe for drainage.
Oh, so we don't have any reinforced concrete pipe. I'm not sure what the actual question relates to. There's no concrete pipe that we're worried about coverage on.
You're concerned about the coverage over the pipe, right?
I'm concerned about the distance from groundwater to the pavement for us to be able to fit an infiltration system in. Which is why we removed the infiltration system to be able to put in the focal point.
But your elevations have changed, correct?
From the previous proposal?
Yes.
Yes.
And they're 2.5 feet lower than they were prior?
Around the site, it varies between 2.5 to 3 feet, yes.
So how much cover do you have over them now?
Well, we completely removed the infiltration system in lieu of the focal point. The other infiltration systems on the other side all have adequate coverage because the groundwater was deeper. We were able to set those lower. But this side, we were not able to get adequate coverage over an infiltration system. Actually, I think the infiltration system would probably pop out of the ground.
So I think maybe what Mark is asking, Casey, is that did you know when you designed with the previous design when the subsurface infiltration was in this location, did you know the groundwater was as high as it is?
Yes, the groundwater has not changed since the previous design. The groundwater was we designed the original infiltration system to be 2 feet above the groundwater where it sits now, where we know it sits now. And that gave us a vertical profile that had groundwater to subsurface infiltration up to the pavement. With reducing the elevation of the pavement, we no longer have that vertical profile to include an infiltration system. So the groundwater has not changed since the previous filing.
No, I know, your concern is having enough coverage over the pipe.
And the only pipe that we're proposing now is the 12-inch HDPE pipe, which has plenty of coverage. It's about 3 feet deep.
You don't have to reinforce that with concrete or anything?
Nope.
All right. That's all I get for now.
Chris?
I mean, in general, I mean, I like to see less fill, you know. And so generally, you know, when there's less fill in a site, I think that's generally better for the environment, so that can be an advantage. I guess I just want to make sure I understand from our consultants Beta that this focal point design doesn't pose any risk to the groundwater. And if Beta, our consultants are okay with the focal point design and don't see any particular risk to the groundwater, I'd be okay with it. Those are my thoughts, Carl.
And Phil, you're nodding, I think. Beta?
Yep.
Can you repeat the question, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand, Beta, from your professional opinion, looking at this redesign, do you see, you know, what do you see as far as the risk profile of going to this focal point design? Do you see any increased risk of going with this design versus the previous design to our groundwater? Obviously, it's a sensitive area close to the town's wells. I wouldn't be comfortable if we were increasing the risk of potential pollution down the line. What's your opinion around that question and concern?
So I think there's little difference between the previous approved infiltration system than this system. They are essentially providing treatment of TSS removal and then a filtration of the runoff through the 2.5 feet of media, which is similar. And you know, obviously the previous design had at least 2 feet of separation between the bottom of the system and groundwater, so that's equivalent in terms of the treatment process. So I don't think this is any worse than the previous design system. In fact, it may be better because there will be more monitoring of this type of system.
So bottom line, I think I heard you say no increased risk.
No, correct.
Okay.
Good for now, Carl.
Dave McLaughlin?
Footprint of the building the same?
So the footprint of the building, the shell itself is the same. We incorrectly noted the square footage in the approved set. The square footage is now just about 91,000 and some change. It's the exact same shell, exact same footprint that you saw before. The last one just had the wrong number
Traffic
associated
pattern's
with it.
gonna be the same?
Exactly the same.
We had some special conditions when we approved it before. Are they still appropriate?
I think so, yes.
We also had some waivers. They still need the waiver for 25 foot and 30 foot?
I believe so.
So they're still in place.
Yeah.
Do we have to take them again? No.
No, you only have to vote on amending it. You have to vote on the amendment.
When you do the construction, educate me.
Sure.
You said that high water level was roughly 114, but it was lower as you got to the building. It was like down to 110, I think you said.
On the other side of the building,
From
yep.
left to right, it gets
From left.
lower.
So what is it, we're at the edge of the building there?
I don't know yet. We haven't dug the test
Okay.
bits.
Let me ask the guys that do some construction, if in fact there is a 4-foot frost wall, is that what you call it? At that point, and if the groundwater there is less than 122? You said, you gave me a number 122 and a half.
122 and a half is
Which is where?
the finished floor.
Right where the arrow is?
You're correct. The entire slab
Okay.
foundation for the building will be at 122 and a half.
Okay, so if it's at 122, and if the frost line is 4 feet?
4 feet.
4 feet.
That's 118, and it's something less than 114 is the high water. When you're doing construction, what is the likelihood that you're gonna get close to that water line?
You don't want to dig down, if you've got virgin soil there, you don't want to dig down below that
Right.
to put your footing in for your frost wall.
I mean, is it easy for them to stay above
Yes.
the water line?
Yes.
Okay. That's
As
all
long
I
as the
wanted.
materials are relatively clean.
I'm sorry, Mark?
As long as the materials are relatively clean. I mean, there's no boulders in there and stuff like that where you're gonna disturb.
That
Very
was a-
nice sand out
That
there.
was an originally filled site probably anyhow, right? I don't know.
What we found on the right side was just a lot of sand. On the left side, we also found sand, but the groundwater was right there, so.
So, no change in the footprint, so there's enough room for the fire trucks to get around the back, right?
Correct.
We were talked about the material for that road, right, Mark? So the fire trucks can go.
Yep,
so
Right,
that's-
that was,
And the
pervious,
traffic,
wasn't it?
and you said the traffic pattern doesn't change. I have no
Nothing has
que-
changed about the layout of the site, just the elevations.
I have no other questions, Mr. Chair.
Peter, you indicated you might have another question.
Well, it's a simple one. The focal point system is designed for, let's use year flood, since we're all thinking that with the recent weather patterns. What rainfall event is this system designed for, and what exactly happens when the rainfall exceeds the design storm? Let's say, is it a, 25-year storm, or what's it designed for?
So.
Like sizes and basin size?
Right. So it's currently designed to pass the 100-year storm, completely without any ponding. Well, there is ponding just in the fact that the 12-inch pipe just can't pass that much flow fast enough.
Right.
So it's not the media, it's not the focal point that can't pass it, it's the pipe that we're putting out on it. But that ponding does not exceed the elevation of that island, so it doesn't go anywhere. It's just held within and then passed through that pipe. The engineered media is rated to pass 100 inches an hour. I believe our 100-year storm is somewhere in the area of about 8 inches in 24 hours. So
Yeah.
it should not have any issues passing an entire 100-year storm.
Well, right, but if the discharge pipe is roughly for a 25-year storm, is that what?
The discharge pipe will pass the 100-year storm without any flooding. It just goes up.
Oh, it will.
It will pass it without any flooding. It just backs up the focal point system.
Got it. So the focal point is not, your calcs show the focal point system will not overflow
Will not.
at a 100-year. And I'm not going to ask about a bigger storm, because that's going to mess up everything we have, right?
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So anything else? Anybody have anything else? David?
So has the tenant actually been lined up?
Not to
No.
my knowledge, no.
They're negotiating, they're.
Okay. So, let me know when you want to talk about, the actual, amending the actual order of conditions. I'll say.
Let's go there.
Right now.
Yeah.
That, and had tipped to Peter on this, it really should have gone into the original order of conditions. But he didn't let me know until after it was issued, that this project does need a multi-sector general stormwater permit from the EPA.
Is that what you and I had talked about during that DPW meeting a few weeks ago?
That was one of the things we talked about.
Yep.
So I don't think it's unreasonable to actually explicitly put that in as another condition
It's fine.
in the amended order.
Okay. You caught that, Vivian?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? So this is an amendment to the original order of conditions. So is there anything else specifically that we want to call out?
I think it's probably just a matter of referencing, a different O&M plan for the focal point. I think it's a matter of just referencing another site plan.
And Beta's revised report, too.
Yes, although, yes, the recommendations that Beta has made, I think they're basically the same as in their recommendations for the original, but,
Okay. Can I pause for a second? I'd just like to ask Beta if there's anything else you want to add to our discussion here. I know you'd kind of gone offline to look at a couple of things, but I'm not sure if there was anything still open there.
No, I did look up, and I don't know, there's something about, something that happened this past June, so, on site, but I don't think there's any record of previous, none in the environmental, Massachusetts environmental.
You saying June 2023?
Website. Yeah. It came up, it was the first one that came up. It was kind of strange, but I don't know. So it looks like it's just an investigation right now, but I don't, I would take any,
No
there
change.
is a LSP associated with it, so, but I I'm not that versed in
Unless they just
contaminated
filed
soils and
something
stuff like
for
that, so.
closing. Unless they just filed something for their closing. I'm not aware of any activity on site that would
Building's been empty and.
relate to an LSP. They might have filed something to go with their closing, but I'm not.
Well, there's monitoring wells in the parking lot, and I assume they're related to what Phil's referring to. And there's a, I know enough to be dangerous when I'm not an LSP. Basically, the sites that do cause this low-level contamination are worked on, I mean, a decade or more. It's a very long, drawn-out process. So there is something going on with these 4 sites that are impacting this site, because otherwise there wouldn't be monitoring wells.
But the applicant doesn't know about it?
Well, in fairness to the applicant, and again, I'm not an LSP and I don't totally understand this, but there is a little quirk in the regs where you don't always notify the downgradient applicant, or maybe the previous owner was notified and that got missed during the property transfer. I don't know. But it's not as straightforward as we think it would
Wouldn't
be.
the applicant have to give somebody permission to go on their property?
Well, but the owner has
Can they-
changed, since those, I think.
Anyhow, you ought to look into it, right?
Phil, can you email us that link to what you're
Can I
reading
share
from?
my screen? Yeah.
you can share the screen.
If you look it up on the
Okay.
Energy and Environmental Affairs data portal for searchable sites, it is actually, the date of, the submittal date was actually June 2nd, 2023. But it says assessment only. So I don't know, maybe the new owner did get an assessment or is
So-
pursuing an
That makes sense.
assessment.
That's what I'm thinking.
So you can
Again,
share
I
your
don't-
you can
it
share your
doesn't say
screen,
that
Phil.
there's-
You can share your screen.
So I think maybe a condition that would say any contamination discovered during the assessment that's ongoing should be copied to the Conservation Commission or the town. So you could add that condition.
Yeah, but the problem is you're not gonna be able to discover contamination unless you have a sampling program, which may or may not be within our purview, but you're not gonna see it. You're not gonna see a trace amount of solvent contamination.
Right. So this is a separate, the DEP contamination is a separate, and it has its own process and such. So I think maybe just linking any reports generated because of this process to the commission so that they're aware of it and I think is a fair.
Phil, you said
condition.
there's an LSP that's referenced in that report?
Yes. Good.
So, I mean, does it give a name and contact information?
It gives the name and LSP number.
Phil, is that for 270 Bill Ricker Road or one of the other 4 adjacent MCP sites?
The address listed here is 270 Billrica Road.
Okay, well, let's be super careful. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that there's a number of other MCP sites, not 270, but other sites that they've determined may be, the plume may be leaving the other sites and entering this site. And I don't know if it has or has not, but that's the point of the monitoring wells. So the quirk is you can't just look up 270 Billrica Road, because that may not be the actual site. The actual site might be the people next door or even further away. So what you really have to do is a super deep dive and read all the reports on the adjacent sites to see if any of those other sites are looking at contamination that may have impacted this property. Now, again, I'm not trying to make a big issue here. It could be that there's nothing, but when you see those monitoring wells in the pavement, somebody's been doing something, and it's not that easy to find the data. You can't just look up 270 Billrica Road. You have to figure out where, if there is any contamination, where it's coming from.
All right, so how do we, what do you, David, do you have a suggestion here?
I would
There-
suggest contacting that LSP and
Yeah.
asking for a report and additional information.
So Carl, I'm thinking we may want to get some more information,
Yeah.
continue to our next meeting, just get a little more information.
Yeah,
make
this
sure
is
there's
feeling a
nothing
little
that's
squishy to me.
surprise.
I
Yeah.
think we're close,
Yeah.
but we'd want to be really sure on this, is what I'm sensing. Phil, was there something else you wanted to add?
So there are two sites that are closed, one at 279 Billerica Road across the street, and 296 Billerica Road, which is up, the next property over. But they're both closed. I mean, I can have our LSP look at it, or, I would recommend that at a minimum, you include a condition that requires a disclosure from the analysis that's looks like it's already been started with
Okay.
this process. So.
I think it sounds like we should continue the hearing until probably 2 weeks and be able to get this information resolved in that timeframe.
You want to see if there's any questions or comments from the audience?
Yeah, sure. This is an open meeting. Are there any public comment or anybody on the? Nobody on the call, David?
Carl, also, it might be good to kind of keep things, continue for a little more information, but also give David, our agent, a chance to draft up these
Yeah.
special conditions. That way we'll have the conditions, everything kind of ready for us to take some action when we come
Make it
back.
fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, it's just adding on to the existing order.
Yeah.
That's all.
So I'll take a motion to continue.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make a statement
Yeah,
before you
sure.
vote? I can't talk anymore. I mean, obviously, our clients were hoping with the clean letter we got from Beta that we could move forward tonight, but I do appreciate, and this is news to us. I mean, I asked Casey, do you guys even recall picking up these monitoring wells? And he has no information, but you know for a fact they're there, that they're monitoring wells on 270.
Do I have to admit that I went on site?
No,
answer that
no,
question?
I'm saying, I understand, you
Yeah, I
know they're
just-
there, then they're there. I'm not questioning it.
Yeah, I took literally a 2-minute drive
Sure.
through that
Oh,
parking
you're
lot.
always welcome. That's part of
I didn't
the,
even get out of the car, but you can see the monitoring wells if you know what to look for.
okay.
And,
You're
and I,
pro-
d- and so, yeah.
Peter, your professional experience would allow you to identify a monitoring.
Right. So, thank you.
Some people may not know that.
I wouldn't know, but
Okay.
you know.
And so I certainly appreciate the board's wanting to check into this and find what's going on, but I would ask if perhaps David could draft the order, so if in 2 weeks we're clean and everything's good, then we wouldn't have to wait for an additional delay.
That makes a
'cause
lot of sense.
I appreciate that, and we'll be looking into this too.
David, does that seem reasonable to you?
Yes.
That's doable? Okay, all right.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
again,
Chairman.
I'll take a motion for a continuance.
Move
We
we
asked for public comment, we didn't get any. But- so,
Our next meeting is July 25th.
Yes.
Yes,
Is that a continuance to the 25th okay with everybody? I move we continue the hearing on 270 Billerica Road until July 25th.
moved by Dave,
Seconded.
second by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, unanimous. So we'll continue to July 25th, and thank you very much for
Thank you for your time. We
good
appreciate it.
discussion. And thank you, Phil. Thanks for your help here.
They don't know about
Have a good night.
They're
Okay.
really obvious. I mean, they're
So let's keep
flush.
things moving. Let's focus on the next item on the list. We have, David, we have the 120 Gorham Street is the next item. Is there
Black and white, okay,
a,
sorry.
anybody on 120 Gorham Street?
No, I don't see anybody.
Susan MacArthur?
I recommended that Mr. Silva be here tonight, but I can certainly update the commission on it. So I think significant progress has been made. I visited the site today. He's done a good job with, addressing the erosion. There was a couple of severe areas in particular that he's filled those in, got them planted. Just in general, there's very little additional erosion. The grass is growing, is fully established and growing well. So I'm perfectly comfortable closing the hearing And
You were there today, you said?
I was there today.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So, again, I think there's been sufficient progress, and so that I think it's time to close the hearing. And again, just a reminder to the commission that this originally was a notice of intent hearing for a new addition, but the problems with the erosion and,
Yep.
you know, and siltation and that violation sort of really confused it, you know, for quite a while. So, I think that though now it's a matter of closing the hearing and issuing the order of conditions.
So I'd be
for the
inclined to go
addition.
along with that. Is any other comment from the commission?
I just want to comment, I appreciate David kind of really persistently pursuing this and making sure everything got resolved to a good
Yeah,
ending.
really had to dog it.
You
Otherwise, it would
really
have
had
gotten
to
a lot
dog
worse.
this one.
Any other comments?
I'd like to second Chris's thank you for David's effort.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, I'll take a motion.
Move we close the hearing?
Yeah, okay, motion to close the hearing. Is there any more, no public, I don't think anybody wants,
Seconded.
yeah, second to close the hearing. And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll take a motion on the,
Do we have special orders?
Yeah, the only kind of special condition that I would recommend is just to, and he's already started doing it, is to just plant a hedgerow of vegetation at the 25-foot no disturb setback
right,
from the wetlands.
That was mentioned, yeah.
And he's already started planting high bush blueberries,
Awesome.
which actually are doing quite well. So.
a little rain?
Yeah, and in fact, we were eating the blueberries today. But, so.
Sometimes there's benefits to your job, huh, David?
Yes, yes. Although I told him, you know, don't eat them all because the birds like them.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
but that's.
Except Mark
the only-
loses all his blueberries.
Yeah, okay, so we have a motion, we have a one order of condition that seems to be already in progress. Anything else? Any other special orders? No, okay.
no.
So I'll take a motion with those conditions. To
So
clo-
moved, so moved.
So this is a motion to
Issue
Help me out.
order
Order
of conditions.
Condition.
issue the order of conditions.
140
yeah.
Gorham Street
The one, I think, one special condition that we have that
Yep.
kind of row of vegetation,
at 25 foot.
25-foot
From
row
the
of
wetlands.
vegetation. Yeah, from the wetlands, yeah.
Got all that, Vivian? Okay, that's a motion from Dave and a second from Chris. Do I have that right, or did I have it backwards?
I thought Garahan made the motion.
Chris made the motion.
Dave seconded it.
All right. All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you very much for closing that one. Let's move on, take that off our hit list. Last one here on the regulatory hearings is the continued from March 1st, 2022, that miscreant applicant, the town of Chelmsford.
Anybody here for that?
So David, you want to give us an update on this one?
I did get an update today from Bridget at Howard Stein Hudson. I guess they need a contract renewal from the town, first of all. But they are looking now at an alternative location for the compensatory flood storage area, where it was originally proposed for the distribution line easement up close to River Neck Road.
Yeah.
Now they're talking about, now they're looking at actually land owned by the water district across, more or less across the street from the bank, Workers Credit Union, which is all priority habitat, and it's all pretty well wooded. So, you know, I don't know what sort of issues might be involved with that, but it looks like that might be a more suitable location for the compensatory flood storage area.
Okay, so this is a continuation, this is over a year old, this is a long time, however, I don't think the town of Chelmsford's going anywhere.
Right.
What do you guys think on the board? I'm just looking for ideas. Should we just continue this?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
That's, yeah.
It's not, it's, yeah.
Put it out.
I don't think we need to close it and have them reopen it down the road. I'm fine with this,
Then he'll pay us anyhow.
yeah, so.
So I would suggest continuing it for another 6 months.
6 months, so we're in July, so that would be January, first meeting in January 2024, whatever date that is. Okay, so I'll
So
take a
moved.
motion. So moved by Mr. McLaughlin, second by Mr. Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, unanimous. closed on the regulatory stuff. So,
Can I make a suggestion? Could we have the water department come before? They're kind of sitting there, nobody else is in front of them.
sure, yeah, let's go right there. Is
Nobody wants
this,
to go home.
is this the IMA well? Is that the topic we've got here, David?
Yes. So Andy did get me some additional information, which I forwarded to the commission. Let me bring that up.
Dave, we have hard copies as well, if that's preferable.
Okay.
Bunch of hard
Sure.
Okay,
copies.
yeah, why don't you?
Sure, why don't you share that, yeah.
9 copies there.
Thank you.
Does it make sense for you to come up and talk a little bit about what we're doing here, or what we're,
Okay, we can give you an overview again.
yeah, I know we talked about this once already, but there's changes, is that, if I remember right?
Questions.
Clarifications,
Yeah.
yes. So my name
And
is,
you-
An-
yeah, go ahead, thanks.
Yep. My name is Andy Reed. I'm the water superintendent for the Chelmsford Water District. I would like to ask if the board would be inclined to do so. I do have my consultant Doug DiNatale from AECom, who's going to be very integral to this process. If he can just come up and kind of co-present, because we can
That's
answer
fine, no
questions better
problem.
together.
Thank you for asking.
So just a quick overview. The district did approach the Conservation Commission about test wells on the property that is off River Neck Road. Specifically, you can drive right behind Orleans Drive where the treatment plant is. The town has a parcel. So in the handout, you actually see 11 by 17 that outlines the proposed locations given. Yeah, last page. I'll let you get there. So without getting into a lot of details, there was several questions about where the potential test wells would be versus where the observation wells would be. And we've tried to outline that for you, as well as provide probably a lot of other information of other potential restrictions and items associated with that property, characteristics, if you will. So I'll give you a moment so you can look at that map.
So if I remember, we had 12 test wells, but I'm seeing 8.
There are 8, and we have 4. You can see the black and white circles where the observation wells potentially would be.
The monitoring?
Yep,
Okay.
monitoring wells, I'm sorry, correct term, monitoring.
Yep, okay.
So let me just make sure I understand, Andy. So if, just looking at the screen, so these symbols right here,
Yes,
these are what?
so that's the area that we would potentially put the test wells in.
Okay,
And so Doug has been kind, just to kind of pinpoint,
So those locations aren't protected yet.
no,
They're just approximate where they might be.
correct.
so in that area would go potentially the test wells, the observation wells, and the monitoring wells?
Yeah, the monitoring wells are actually, you see the black and white circles?
Black and white,
Sounds
There's only
right.
4 of them.
Down there.
down here.
Yeah, and Doug can talk a little bit about the observation wells.
Those are the blue ones?
So the blue wells are the existing pumping wells, the existing
okay,
district
right.
wells. Yeah, I know, there's awful lot on this drawing. So, this project kind of has 2 purposes. Number one, to see if there's an additional supply of water, of groundwater. The other is wellhead protection. And those monitoring wells that are placed there, you can, yes, right there.
And down
then-
here.
And there. And I believe there's one other up in the corner, Dave,
Up here.
yes, and there's one on the western corner of the yellow,
Yeah.
Over here.
that's the district's property, right?
So there are 4, so there are 4 monitoring.
4 monitoring wells.
So those are proposed,
Those are proposed, those are all proposed.
okay.
The 8 well locations that are chosen there in that odd-shaped dashed red shape, those are approximate locations of proposed test wells for new water supply. It may be that we don't drill all of them. In fact, I think it's probably likely, but I don't want to say. I think, we say approximate because it's exploration. Exploration by its nature, there's uncertainty. I suspect we'd want to leave some of those wells in, even if they're not great sites for a new source of water, simply as a monitoring well network to protect. Now, this would be the 3rd well on this particular property, so I suspect we may want to leave some of those in place. But that's just kind of, hypothetical. Again, exploration is there's a lot of uncertainty.
So what's the difference between a test well and an observation well?
So it's kind of nomenclature that they'll all be the same size. A test well is the term we use that expressly, is for water supply exploration. An observation well might be for water level drawdown. So we put in if you take a look at let me see, the photographs there. Okay, on the you see a couple of white pipes here.
Yep.
Okay, so you see the one labeled 21-17. We would call that the test well, and the 2-foot observation well is right next to it, because we're going to pump the test well and observe drawdown in the observation well.
That's very helpful. That's very helpful.
And the same thing with the photograph down below. One is the pumping test well, the other is the observation well. It's kind of, it's a loose term, but I think that'll help.
Are they all the same diameter?
All the same diameter.
So is
2
it
inch
the 4-inch casing and a 2-inch
pipe
pipe?
and screen.
Is there a 6-inch cap on those? That's what threw me. I read 6-inch caps somewhere, and I said, wait a minute.
Oh.
They're proposing 6-inch wells. I heard 2, so.
Yeah, no. Well, if you saw a 6-inch, that's wrong.
Well, it could have been me. Could have been me.
Okay.
Okay. So they're all the same, basically.
They're all the same, yeah. It's just
Drive the casing.
the
They're
purpose.
physically the same, the purpose is different.
Purpose is
Got
different.
it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So you're also proposing to do the short-term pumping tests?
Right, so if you look at, just go to the first photograph on the back of page 1. You can see the rig. I'll let you get there. This gives you an idea what the drilling rig looks like. You've got a mast that goes up about 12 feet. He's got a service vehicle. He's got that cube in the back there is for water supply. He's got some benches for pipe and so forth. The samples come out in plastic liners, okay?
So the water's not flowing out of the test well?
No.
So you're not,
If
you're
we're-
not pouring water on the ground as you bring it up, if there's water there?
This technique uses a relatively minor amount of water until we get to the phase where we're actually pumping. Okay, so on the next page, you see this is a well screen.
Yep.
I don't know how well you can see it. It's a stainless steel wire-wrapped well screen, okay? This is such a great invention. And it's attached to the, you've got a PVC pipe. The well screen goes in the bottom. And then you start developing the well with this diaphragm pump. So it just surges and you try to get the water to come. In this case here, the water table is only 3 feet or so. So it should come pretty quickly. And the purpose of this is to remove the sand from around the screen so it will pump more freely.
When you do that, how much water ends up on the surface?
You might use the diaphragm pump for an hour, and it's pumping 20 to 30 gallons a minute.
So it's an hour once a day, or an hour that's it?
An hour, that's it.
Okay.
An hour once, just to remove the
Yep.
sand.
So where's the discharge proposing to be?
That just goes on the ground. This is just this is a small amount of water that ends up infiltrating
Mhm.
into the ground
So
surface.
so there's no danger of erosion, you think?
No, I mean, if there were any danger of erosion, we'd put down a splash board or something like that. When we do prolonged pumping tests, we always have some kind of a tarp or plastic but these are 5-day or 10-day tests where you're pumping 600 gallons a minute perhaps, and you're discharging to the ground. You have to have some kind of a splash board so that it doesn't cause erosion.
These 8 locations here,
Yeah.
I assume there's a maximum amount of distance you'd want between each one?
I think it's about 150 to 200 feet,
Between each one?
something like that.
And
But
is that-
again,
See, I don't know how many square feet that area encompass,
let me get an estimate for you, because that's like, that might be 600 by 600,
Now, the other thing is,
Yeah.
so 9 acres. Is that about?
once you've got all 8 in the ground, that area gets a lot of traffic from people and kids over time. It's not an official reservation. We don't have authorization, we have separate regulations. We don't encourage people, but because the left-hand side of Butts is Carter Drive, I don't know so much about, maybe a little about Riverneck, but you're gonna see kids playing in there, and I don't want them getting hurt. If these pipes are sticking up out of the ground, once they're left,
Yeah, they're
Right.
2 to 3 feet above ground, so they're
do you
visible.
put signs up, telling,
So-
do you expect, you don't expect vandalism, but you might get it.
It happens occasionally. It doesn't happen often, and we drill in all kinds of places that are,
Worse than this.
well, public and not so public, and
Yeah.
the pipes that you're asking about, those are these black pipes here, so that's what the finished installation would look like. It's a 4-inch steel pipe.
And they're gonna be there forever, right?
Well, I mean, forever, not necessarily, but
Yeah.
Do you maintain around them forever? Or would you let brush and shrubs and grass grow up around them?
Yeah, so that area, from walking through my experience, it's all like pine, so there's
Yeah.
not a lot of scrub brush.
Right.
Generally, we like to leave them behind so we can monitor the wells or monitor the groundwater in the area. They're pretty secure. Doug's showing you a picture, those caps lock, and they are steel, so they're not necessarily easy to get into.
I guess I'm more concerned of kids going out on their four-wheelers with sledgehammer and kind of just taking a whack at it.
Or just, looking the other way and running into the one and
Yeah.
flipping over.
But I thought we were trying to reduce motorized traffic.
Well, we are, but
Not
you
that
don't
way.
know what
Not that
people are
way.
gonna do.
we wouldn't put them in the trail.
Yeah.
We wouldn't put them in the middle of the trail. We'd put them off to the side of the
Yeah.
trail and in the trees.
All right, this area is, I'm sorry, finish what you
No,
were
no,
saying.
no, go ahead.
This area is subject to wildlife habitat?
Well, it's priority habitat.
We had
yeah.
talked
So,
about-
has somebody filed anything with them yet?
I don't think so. That was the next thing I was going
They are
to
notoriously slow. right?
Well, that was, from my perspective, that was going to be the next step, was to inquire. Have you had, I think, Andy, did you mention you had conversations with Natural Heritage at this point?
Yeah,
About this specific?
Not about this specific property.
Okay. Because I'd like to very much be in the loop for that. And I can certainly, I was planning on emailing them. I can certainly CC you.
The work that the Zunu England did on wood turtles was not so much in that area as it was down to the lower left, so I don't think.
It's
they
close.
go- Huh?
It's close.
Yeah, but I don't think they went way up where
Right,
they're
right.
gonna go.
As far as turtles are concerned, normally that inquiry to Natural Heritage comes after the test wells, because there might not be a project. If we don't find the water, there's no project. And I think you're right about them being slow. But also, we've done projects before, in fact, just a couple of years ago, where we had the well driller walk in front of the drill rig every morning as he goes in, and walk in front of it on the way out every day, that's not a problem.
Well, you would
Shoo them
not-
away.
And you wouldn't be doing this in the spring and late spring, I don't think, from what I heard before. If we okayed it, you'd be, because the nesting
If it's
time
dry.
is late spring, so I mean,
Well, but you also have to be concerned when the hatchlings are.
yeah, the
So-
hatchlings are wanted.
So where are we? What's the,
Well, I think, I
What's
mean,
the
this,
request here?
this
What's
is the
the
kind of
action?
information that I requested.
Right.
So I think, and now we have enough to get forward. You know, I'll do a little bit more research. I think as far as the commission's jurisdiction goes, I think this satisfies, or is in compliance with the minor activities. But I think we still need to ask Natural Heritage with regard to the rare species.
But they couldn't stop the project, could they?
No, and I don't
That's
think
longer
they
term,
would
too.
try to. I think, you know, if there are any, well, we're talking about just this particular phase.
Right.
I think what, you know, again, they might suggest what you just mentioned. You know, have someone, you know, going out there and, you know, basically doing sweeps for turtles or hatchlings, something like that.
Hatchling, little
That's-
guys.
that,
Where
right,
is-
we need to know.
Where's the National Grid easement?
I think it's, yeah, right along here, yeah.
I would like to point out just one other thing. So this is the start of a multi-phase process. So the test well drilling is there water? What's the water quality look like, you know, just preliminarily? The next phase would be the DEP new source approval process, and you folks would have another chance to weigh in. Natural Heritage gets involved, DEP, of course, you know, it's a MIPA. What else? The water management permit, you know, all of these things are triggered once you enter the new source approval process.
Yeah, so that I think would almost certainly require a filing with the commission.
And
Right.
can I ask a question? I think I have the answer, but I think you just answered it. But some people have raised the question of what is the water withdrawal capacity of River Meadowbrook and whether we're over it or not. That's what the state water withdrawal permit takes a super
Right.
hard look with the experts, because they're doing that with all our rivers. I think that what I just said is correct, isn't it?
The swimming process has been around for about 10 years now, and that
Right.
addresses the SWIMMY Sustainable Water Management Initiative.
Right.
It's part of the Water Management Act process.
Right.
And that was intended to address the issue of impact to flow. Now,
Yep.
if we get into the new source approval process, we're going to have to evaluate that on-site. We're going to have to monitor stream flow. We're going to have to put monitoring instruments in the brook
Right,
to see actual impacts.
right. And you've
Because
got-
there are theoretical impacts and then there are actual impacts.
Right, and in this particular case, this is both, as you know, the endangered species habitat, but it's also on the state biomap of, help me, David, the critical habitat for future climate resiliency. So I think that would be my hope, is that there would be some analysis of water withdrawal on, well, basically the critters.
I think that's.
But I think that
that's gonna
comes
be
up
required.
later, is what I'm trying to get at, not today.
Yeah, so I think we want to make sure that we,
It's not a,
right, bound this discussion to
Let's stay with
these
the issue.
test, the test monitoring
Yeah.
wells. One thing at a time.
I
So,
like to see it go forward with the conditions and filing the appropriate file.
sorry, say that again?
This has to be filed. They haven't filed yet with DEP or anything, right?
Right, I think that's a ways down the road, a
Right,
little ways. So this is
After the
only-
test, yeah.
This is very preliminary.
No, I think what Mark's asking is, are there any provisos on us approving this tonight? The only one I can think of is if for some stupid reason, National Heritage comes back and says, wait a minute, you can't do the test wells. Unlikely.
Right.
But that would be, I mean, we could approve it subject to getting a favorable ruling from National Heritage.
Right, and it may be within the realm of possibility that Natural Heritage will want a filing, a notice of intent or an RDA filing with the commission. I
For
think
test wells?
that's possible, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
I'd like to see it moved along.
Yeah, well, I think we are doing that. If no filing with the commission is necessary, then it's just a matter of getting Natural Heritage's approval, and again, that may be very simple. We'll just have to wait and see.
I think, Carl, to answer your question from 5 or 10 minutes ago, what the district's looking for is eventually an IMA, saying that we can enter the property, it's okay to drill, test, I should say, and just see what comes out of it.
So I think, I guess we could proceed with the commission voting to approve the agreement as drafted, with the contingency that, Natural Heritage.
We haven't heard any changes from the original draft.
I think I made a couple. Let me bring those up.
But we had questions that this is now answering, this handout is now
Well,
answering.
the question pertained monitoring versus test.
Right, and
We needed
that's
that
helpful to
explanation.
understand the
And there was
purpose.
also reference to 12 drills in a row,
Right.
which didn't,
No, this is very helpful.
which is not practical.
Yeah, you can really see what the intent is here. So the purpose is, there's 8 test and 4 monitoring wells, but physically they're the same, other than the purpose. And then, so what did you find, David?
Now, this is all dependent on, the number is actually dependent on depth too.
Yep,
If
yep.
they're 80 feet deep, then we'd probably have less opportunity to test in another location.
Where are those zone 1, 2 relative to that proposed condo project?
You mean the Crandall project?
I don't know what the name of it is.
The one right next to the plant you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Are they in the are they right smack in your zones? Or will they be, or don't you know where they're gonna go?
No, well, I can only talk, I'll talk.
I'm sorry, I'm changing the subject.
It's okay.
Maybe we should, let's finish this and then we'll go back,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
So these, well, I previously added this one, but this top
Yeah.
sentence in blue was what I had added subsequent to the commission's last vote, was the commission's approval is contingent upon the conservation agent's verification that the scope of work is exempt from state and town wetland laws, bylaws, regulations pursuant to a detailed written work description provided by the district. So, I'm certainly comfortable with that being the case. But again, I still think we need to wait for Natural Heritage, because Natural Heritage, I think, does have the authority to say, well, there should be a filing with the commission.
I'm sorry, how, do they have authority because of the
Right, the MISA.
MISA?
Under
Okay.
MISA, the rare
So
species.
we can approve it subject to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and they can just wait till they hear from Natural Heritage and then
Yeah.
move out.
We'll have
Do
to.
you have anything else you added in there, David? Or-
No, that
All right,
was.
so should we take a motion to,
What?
To vote.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we vote to approve this latest draft of the IMA, but expressly subject to National Heritage approvals as may be required.
Second.
so motion by Chris, second by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. So motion passes unanimous.
So once I get a definitive answer, Carl, I'll let you know, because it says here that you're supposed to sign.
This was really helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
This was
yeah.
excellent, honestly, and we really appreciate getting the paper copies too. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Now, my
We asked
question,
for it, you
it's
did it,
further
that's-
down River Neck, I think, than your zones, is that correct?
You can go to the map, if you wanna bring them up to the map.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a little off the agenda, but let's detour for a moment, yeah.
So, the development I know of is this one right in here. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
Well, I don't know how big it is.
I'm just trying to, it's like 40 units,
Originally, yeah.
40, so the.
So
owner-
he's outside of your zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're close. We're kind of in the neighborhood, depending on what he does.
Okay, thank you.
And he's also in rare species habitat.
That's even worse, yeah.
Again.
And Andy, could I ask a quick question? It's gonna bug me all night.
Yeah.
You mentioned twice that one of the purpose of these wells was wellhead protection.
Yeah.
Can you just super quickly elaborate on that for 1 second?
You mean leaving
Like-
the monitoring wells?
Yeah, what did you mean by wellhead protection? Was it protection of the
Terrorists.
quality of the water?
Yeah, so I'll just speak generally. So when we leave monitoring wells, what we like to do is have an idea of the fluctuation of the groundwater.
Right.
It also allows us a sampling point. So in the past, we had Jack and Emilak, who was just north, and we used to have contamination that was VOCs.
Right.
And so we can potentially sample and let us know if something's coming.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Could I add just something?
Yeah.
So basically, when you establish a network of monitoring wells, the intention is to observe groundwater flow conditions.
Right.
Under non-pumping conditions, under static conditions, in which they're kind of uniform. And in this case, I would expect, absent the river neck wells, the groundwater would flow towards the river. As soon as you start pumping the wells, there's a cone of depression, which
Right.
is a term you've probably familiar with.
Yep.
So those established monitoring wells allow you to see what the cone of depression looks like. Where does the water come from? I will say, I've been doing this kind of work for about 40 years, and I would say half of the wells in Massachusetts don't have any real good idea where the groundwater originates. And people make all kinds of assumptions about you're drying up the river or you're not drying up the river. You're drying up my well. A lot of bogus claims.
Yep.
So this is kind of an attempt. I'm surprised DEP is not requiring this. It's kind of disappointing. But in this case, I've convinced Andy that this is a good thing to do. So,
Evidence-based.
what's that?
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based.
But ultimately, that might be something the Conservation Commission will require, that kind of information.
Gee, I think I got you in trouble.
Okay, all right, so
we
I
would've
think we're
gotten
good.
there.
Let's move on. I
Thank
think
you.
we're all set. Thank you both, gentlemen.
gentlemen.
Anything else, we're all set for you? David, you know your,
Yes, yeah.
your tasks
So
on
I'll
this?
try and get an answer ASAP.
Okay, let's see. We did talk about representation a little bit earlier. Oh, so the Master Plan Implementation Committee, I've been the member. I'd like to shift that. I'd like to ask if Peter is interested in this, taking this role on, being the Conservation Commission representative to the Master Plan Implementation Commission. Does that work for you?
Is this when I hide under the table?
Yeah, exactly.
That works, thank you.
Yeah. Is there
I'd
any,
be happy to.
anyone else who wants this? I'm kind of chuckling.
Or wants to help?
All right, everybody okay with that? We don't even have to vote. Anybody object? We're okay with that?
Depends on what he does.
Okay, so you'll do that. I'll send a note to.
Congratulations.
I'll send a note to Evan. I think Evan and, anyway, I'll let him know. So thank you for taking
Yeah,
that, Peter.
I'll keep the commission totally engaged on anything
Yeah,
important.
okay, all right, thank you. So, David, now, let's go through our favorite topics here, the usual suspects.
Okay.
Updates on 0 Littleton Road and et cetera.
Okay, so we get the locations straight this time. So 0 Littleton Road is approximately across the street from Enterprise Bank.
This is the Beaver Brook
Yes.
encroachment, I guess.
Yes. So I wrote a couple of days ago to the owner, Mr. St. John, because I hadn't heard from him. Asked him what the status was. You know, what is the progress on fulfilling the requirements of the enforcement order. He said that, and I knew that the wetlands had been delineated by Ms. MacArthur, and then the surveyor was at some stage of mapping them, but in the surveyor is Pat Flaherty. According to Mr. St. John, Mr. Flaherty has taken ill
Whoa, that's too bad.
and has no one else working with him.
No, right.
So he's in the process of finding another surveyor
Okay.
to do the plan of the delineation, and just ask him to let me know just as
I'm
soon as he
hearing
has.
Ernest, earnestly trying to make this happen, though. I think.
Yeah, I think, I think after his most recent
He
email.
hired a good, he
Yeah.
hired a good
Yes.
engineer, it's too bad he gets sick.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I think he is working in good faith to do the, what the enforcement order requires. I don't think I can say the same for 221 Littleton Road, which is where the oil trucks and similar types of vehicles are being stored, and they still are. I went down there today, I took a drive-by. So town council has heard nothing from despite a couple of attempts at least to make contact with the owner's attorney. He's heard no response. So you saw the email I sent you
Yep,
today
yep.
saying, well, based on the assumption that you're not going to hear anything, what do you recommend as the next steps? And I didn't get a response from town council on that question before the meeting tonight, but I'm almost certain what he's going to say is, well, you need to issue an enforcement order.
Okay.
But I think the main decision that has to be, or one of the main decisions that has to be made as part of that is, does the commission want to, and I think it's to file an RDA with the commission should be part of the enforcement order, but does the commission want to let him keep the trucks there in the meantime, or tell him to remove them off-site? I think that's one of the main
Until we
decisions.
know what's inside the trucks, until we know the condition of the trucks, I don't want them left there.
Well, I think
They
it's.
could be leaking, we don't know, and not,
Well,
and
my
they could be
understanding-
half full of oil,
My understanding is that, yeah, it's a retail oil delivery business that's being operated off of.
or sludge.
property. So, okay.
That's just
So,
me.
do we want to have any more discussion about what we want to do? Even directing you to start an enforcement order contingent on what
Draft an
we hear in the next?
enforcement order,
Yeah, that's what my plan is, to draft an enforcement
Okay.
order, but, so it's to cease and desist in the sense of getting the trucks off the property.
Yep.
And then to file an RDA if they want to ask for approval.
So just a
they have to
question.
File an RDA.
Yeah, question. We have jurisdiction to do this. This is within our, I just want to be explicit.
It's actually in I mean, it is in the buffer zone. I mean, I think, in my mind anyway, what gives the commission the authority to do this is that there's been a recent change in the use.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
If this had been something that's been going on for 50 years, I would say no, but I gather that the use of this property.
I think it was a
only-
hairdresser for
only
years.
just started. Yeah.
Hairdresser and then an
Yeah.
insurance broker
Yeah.
before that.
But I mean, it's entirely possible the owner will contest that.
Yeah,
That the
okay.
commission doesn't have the authority, but
Right.
my opinion is that the commission does.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to be sure. So you'll start drafting that and keep in touch with Mr. Haverty?
Yeah, and the commission does need to ratify it. I'll plan on having the enforcement order ready for the commission's ratification.
The next meeting?
in the next meeting.
Okay, very good. And the next one, Brick Kiln Road?
35 Brick Hill Road, I have been given permission to go back on the property. I'm doing that tomorrow.
You have been, okay.
Yeah, so I'm
Okay,
actually
good.
going to take a visit there tomorrow, to see what the status.
Are they hostile to you when you go there, when you call, or?
No, they haven't been. They've just kind of been radio silent. They haven't been responsive, but I went through the building inspector. They didn't ignore him. So, and I didn't have to remind her when I spoke to her. She said, "Oh, yeah, I know we have to hire a wetland scientist." So they haven't done that yet, but I'll.
Okay. Well, the guy on Littleton Road knows, right?
Yeah.
Knows where to go.
201, 203 Boston Road,
Chelmsford
so
lumber.
I did speak with the engineer at GPR yesterday.
This is the guy that was on the site when we were there?
Yes, yeah, Bruce Ringwall.
Bruce, yes,
of-
that was the name,
Of
yeah.
GPR, so he said he's been a little bit delayed, but he is going to be submitting the notice of intent for the commission to hold the hearing at the August 8th meeting, so.
At
It
the,
was over a month ago, wasn't it?
yeah, we were looking in June, but,
Yeah, he initially told me he would have it late June, but
yeah, okay.
he just
But
been
he's,
swamped.
so August, so it's not the next one, but the one after that?
That's right.
All right, okay. And I know you have a history with him, so you know
Yes.
he gets things done and.
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay,
confident.
okay, I'm comfortable with that. Land, anything else, on those continual business? Okay, land management, Warren Poll, we are working through the CR. We can talk a little bit more offline about the, emails we've been trading back and forth, but we're still working that. Build the, Lemaiserie
No,
sign.
no new news on the sign. I'll stop up there and see him again. Keep pushing.
Okay. Paul's asking. I know, he asked, did he ask you last time or something? Yeah, yeah.
The other fella made the news quite often, didn't he? Gassai?
25.
Yeah, that was on the, yeah.
We should have been one of the 19 people that
Yeah.
Well, they
complained.
said
Apparently, we weren't.
They made a
19.
cemetery stone and it was never issued, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Hope it isn't what I think it is.
Not good,
No.
not good, so.
That's terrible.
You would have heard.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Okay, anything else, Dave, on Warren Poll? I cut the grass the other day, so the trail looks pretty good. Steve's,
Are the beavers back?
no, I haven't seen them, but I wouldn't swear they're not there. It's hard to tell. The grass along the riverbank is really high, so along the brook
Does
bank.
anybody know, speaking of beavers, anybody know,
We know any?
no. Miss Newhouse that runs Newhouse?
Yes,
Wildlife
I've had a conversation with her.
How did you get a hold of her?
Well, I'll answer that in a sec.
Because she's very good at keeping herself
Yeah, I was,
quiet, and
I was,
I understand
I was
why.
put in contact by a mutual friend because I was interested in her participating as part of the citizen input group to the upcoming open space
Oh,
planning thing. I thought maybe she'd be a good rep for the critters. And my neighbor knows her. And she and I have been texting. So
We should try to build a relationship with her, if for no other reason.
I
She
can-
lets critters go
Right.
after she's rehabilitated
Right,
them,
so-
and
so-
we've got plenty of property.
So she was ready to meet, this was about a month ago, and I said, I'm happy to meet and introduce you to the commission, but I think we're gonna be doing this open space plan update, although maybe that's too far away. So if you'd like, I can ask her if she would, whatever you want, prior to waiting another, probably what, 6 months, Carl?
I don't know.
Well, actually, we don't know. So, yeah, David, if the commission is of interest, I can reach out
Oh,
to her.
we just want to have a connection that, you
She's
know, we
got
have this
good
property
connections
and
in
if she has.
Billerica and in some of the surrounding towns, more
I-
so than she seems to have in Chelmsford. And
I-
yet she's physically located. in
Yeah,
Chelmsford.
I'm pretty sure if I texted her, we'd have coffee as soon as, we could schedule it. So I
Okay.
think we can get to her through this.
Yeah.
It's my neighbor's personal
Yep.
relationship, not mine, but she seems interested in partnering with us.
Let's keep going. Agents report on the Freeman Lake study. Anything update there?
It's very, very slow. Sent out 3, or tried to make contact with 3 companies so far. Got absolutely no response from 2 of them. The third company said they don't have the expertise that's required. So, I'm still planning on doing some additional networking, looking for a consultant.
Do we not want to use the people we used before?
No, we don't.
No, we don't use those people.
Is that right? Okay.
Right,
correct.
yes,
I'll talk to you offline, but
Okay.
I can help.
okay. That might be
Yeah.
needed.
Maybe it's the way we worded it as turning somebody off or something.
Should we not,
I know.
should we not encourage the Hart Pond people to use them either?
They're not using them.
Yeah,
Good,
that's
okay.
changing too, yeah.
Why did the other people not want to bid on it? Are they gun shy because of what happened?
I thought you said they didn't have the capability.
Well,
One said they didn't.
What other people?
I mean,
People that came before us?
the other,
He said He's
right,
approached three groups.
right, and the people that were before us originally was not one of them.
Right.
because
No,
they were
they're out.
already out.
They're out.
So, so I don't know. I don't know why. Again,
Could be-
I'll speak
The
offline.
plate could be too full.
Or maybe PhD level limnologists have plenty of work right now.
I think that might have scared people away.
Is there an end game to that? You do all the study and what's for the purpose of treating the lake,
Or
just
maybe
to
not
study,
treating it.
just to have a study? Or?
No,
Yeah,
so on Freeman, the 1995 study made about 10 specific recommendations, and using herbicide was like the last resort. There are all kinds of other things, most of which I don't think have been done.
Probably not.
So that is, the idea is, okay, that was 30 years ago. The question is, how have the lake conditions changed,
Or the technology.
or the technology,
Right.
or the herbicide application? And what else could be done
Before
by the
we get
town and the surrounding landowners? Things like one of the things the old study said was, one of the reasons Freeman Lake has a problem is the dam is being kept higher than it used to be, and that's creating some conditions for weeds growing. Second thing they pointed out of these dozen or 10 things was much of the native vegetation has been removed from the lake shore, and they determined that that's contributing to the nutrient levels in the pond. On and on. So my only point is, I'm going to just say it, I don't have a personal opinion at this point on whether it's right or wrong to put the stuff in the lake. All I'm saying is there's a science of lake studies, and let's just figure out what the science says for the best approach that'll work, which might be a combination of all of the above.
Right.
So we just don't know
Yep.
what the right choice is.
But the goal is to treat the lake in some way.
Have some kind of a
fix-
management plan, yes.
Fix it.
Yes.
Yes.
And-
Because if you look at it now, it's kind
Yeah.
of nasty right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, there's something very interesting, I need a good time for me to say this. Looking at the old study, they were reporting fish kills from rotting vegetation in 1995. So one key question, if that's still happening, what's the trade-off between potentially killing fish with herbicide and you're killing their habitat? That's bad for fish, but it's also bad for fish if the lake's choked with weeds and they start decaying and depleting oxygen and the fish die.
Right.
That's why, I think, that's probably why you put in the PhD limnologist, is it's way above all our pay grade.
Well, and plus that, my understanding is that was the original study was done by
Yep.
PhD. So I think it makes sense. to
Oh,
do.
it makes a lot of sense if you can get it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Last
thank
thing
you.
here, I think the last thing, we covered the IMA well exploration, so the last thing is just meeting minutes from June 13th and June 27th, which we did get copies from Vivian a few days ago.
And I passed out
And
copies.
we all have
to-
copies, so let's
What
take a
happens
minute. Let's.
when Vivian has no critters in her vegetable garden, she can keep the minutes up.
Telling you the things that can happen.
So,
Surprises never end.
so Vivian, the only thing I saw on the June 15th was under page 3, regulatory hearings, on the DOT Tingsboro Road. My name showed up. Mr. Bischoff asked whether any of the knotweed could be cleaned up as part of this, and she said the work is across the street from the plants. We've continued that discussion, and it's not across the street from the plants. It's the same
That
side.
was subsequent to the minutes, so I don't know that we can.
No, it was in the conversation, because I was
Yeah?
like, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I would just maybe scratch that sentence, Ms. Jacobs, because we were a little turned around on, if I remember right, we were like, which way are we looking at and from Vinyl
Okay.
Square out? And I'm 100% sure the sidewalk is on the same side as the knotweed. Not that it matters, because I don't think they're gonna do anything, but. Anything else? Do I take a motion on these minutes to accept the meeting minutes from June 13th?
So moved.
So moved by Dave,
Seconded.
second by Chris.
Chris?
All in favor to accept the meeting
Aye.
minutes? Aye. Opposed, all unanimous, okay. Let's take a minute to look at the meeting minutes from June 27th. That's very fresh in our minds. That was just a couple weeks ago. That lovely discussion at the beginning with the, oh, how did that go?
Yeah.
Good. The biggest issue for them was, why is it not okay for people to dump their leaves in conservation areas?
And what did you say?
Because they don't belong there.
Hey, good answer, that's a good answer.
Perfect.
That's a perfectly good answer. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for representing us
Oh, you're welcome.
so vigorously.
What is this group?
Highly technical stuff. It's a little local TV cable show called City Life.
Oh, with Evelyn, yes.
We
Yes.
want to know who asked that no.
Evelyn,
Oh,
flat
okay.
out there.
Okay.
She goes, I'm fortunate enough to have a place to put my leaves, but a lot of people don't.
Okay, so,
No.
anything, take a motion on the meeting minutes from June 27th?
Make a motion to approve June 27th.
So moved by
Minutes.
Mark,
Second.
seconded by Chris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no? Unanimous,
Adjourn.
and motion to adjourn from Mr. Garahan. Let's adjourn. I don't think we have to do a second, do we? Oh, we do.
Carol,
We're adjourned, meeting adjourned.
If it's okay with you, I will tell Zoo New England about the testing out at the water department, because